If I had to shoot James Cameron's Titanic with the budget I had for All Saints Day, I would be in my mother's bathtub with a toy boat in the middle with Star Wars figures jumping off the side, a lot of ice cubes from the freezer.
Suspend your disbelief, okay?
It's about Murphy's Law, basically.
Everything that can go wrong does go wrong.
You may want to catch this on the DVD version.
Action!
All Saints Day was born in March of 1996 in Brooklyn, New York, at a coffee shop in the middle of the night. My co-writer Christopher Lynn and I put pen to napkin for the first time, and basically writing the idea out there. And we had kicked around the idea for quite a while, the whole robbery gone wrong concept, but this was the first time we were documenting it. All I remember was we were two college kids with 2 cups of coffee and like $2 between us. You know, come to think of it, we still only have $2 between us. Why did I work with Christopher Lynn? He's a funny son of a bitch. I remember reading, before we started working on All Saints Day, some of his other material. And I remember being really impressed. He was very witty. And another thing that he exemplifies is discipline. I remember going to his house to work on the project. He would be hovering over this Commodore 64, like, this thing was about to break underneath his 2 fingers. And I'm like, man, this guy wants to finish this just as bad as I do. This is someone I want to be working with. I grew up less than a mile away from Chris Lynn. We lived so close to each other our whole lives. And it's only until we met up in Brooklyn College in like our 3rd or 4th year there that we actually became friends and started working on All Saints Day. I lived in the Canarsie section of Brooklyn, he lived in Marine Park. And go figure, we don't know each other, and then the minute we meet, we're going to be spending like the next 7 years together working on a project. Chris and I completed several earlier drafts of the screenplay, constantly revising it over and over, and we consequently shot 2 video versions to go along with it. We thought that the video versions would serve as a great video and audio aid to the screenplay when we would approach investors in the future. The reason why we knew we were going to produce it ourselves, because the odds of any major Hollywood studio picking up a script from 2 unknown young guys was just, we knew we weren't that naive. We knew it was really almost impossible. We stood a better chance of Jesus coming over my house for breakfast. We shot them on Hi8 video. It looked like dog shit. We had our friends doing the acting, anyone we can find holding the camera, anyone else we could find holding the boom. It was tough, but it was edited well, you know. It looked like shit, but it got the point across. And it served us well when we went to the fundraising step. So we shot these video versions, and they definitely did well for us because it provided a tidal wave of momentum in the sense that when you're shooting video versions, you're going from one location to the other. And before you know it, we started to befriend the proprietors of every establishment, and they welcomed us with open arms, knowing that we would eventually want to shoot the film version there. So right off the bat, bang, our locations were free. Another really cool thing was our producer Steve Gall, who runs Dual Camera in Manhattan, loved one of the video versions, thought it showed a lot of promise, and he donated for 2 weeks a really cool 16mm camera package. So there we go, free cameras. Nick Rosa, the owner of Nick's Lobster, loved one of the video versions and was willing to cater the film event for nothing. The whole set would be catered for nothing. So my people ate pretty well between steak and lobster. I mean, you can't complain about that on a set. In a day and age when independent films are being shot with bagels and Chuck E. Cheese and stuff. Another cool plus to shooting the video versions first before shooting a film version, the fact that you get producers on board, people who are interested in the project, one of them being my producer Michael Mangino. He also takes a role, an extra role in the bar scene. Other producers that came on board because they dug the video version were my executive producers, Howard Simon and Robert Alfano. They were an asset to me in every sense of the word. Another big asset to the production was the acquisition of Daniel Maricino, director of photography and producer. Everyone involved really had to double up on their job. And in the case of Daniel Maricino, we're talking about a guy who quintupled up on his job. To sum up the way the momentum started to build, we had free catering, free locations, free camera, and a whole bunch of producers on board. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had that luxury if I was just going in straight to do the feature film. So Chris and I put an ad in backstage, and we were convinced that every male actor between 18 and 27 came down to audition for our film. There was a line around the block. It was really cool. The first person on board the cast was Ray Garvey as Red. I've never seen anyone insult someone else the way he can insult somebody. He didn't have a formal audition. He basically just read for it, and yeah, he was great. Chris and I knew this is Red. As far as the 5 protagonists go, Chris and I always played Johnny and Louis, even in the video versions. Why? Because we knew we could count on each other to show up to the set. We knew we didn't have to wait on one of our friends to get there late or whatever. We knew we could count on each other to take these 2 roles. Not to mention we started to write the role around a little bit of us. Mickey Blatt auditioned for the role of Marco, the lead in the ensemble. I know Mickey from Brooklyn College. He went to school with us. He had worked on several student films that I got a chance to see. One of them being called, I think, 30-something Basement Blues. I remember this thing floored me, and I said, this guy has to come down for an audition. Came down, nailed the role, and that's how that happened. James Patrick McArdle auditioned for the role of Hardware. I knew James from Brooklyn College, not so much from the film department where Mickey was, but he was in the theater department, and I've seen him in a ton of plays there. Mark Love auditioned for the part of Matthew. Chris or I never had the opportunity to meet Mark Love before. We never heard of him. He came down straight from backstage. And you know what? The minute he opened his mouth on stage, we knew that he would be Matthew. Something else I'm proud of is Anthony Mangano coming on board. I've seen his work in 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. I've seen him on television a lot when I was growing up. And he was willing to come on board to even play a small role like Red's partner, Larry. One way I was able to raise money successfully was by soliciting the tables that I waited on. I waited tables in college to put myself through college, and basically I would know who the big tippers were, the big spenders. I would have no reservation whatsoever about approaching them. I would show them one of the video versions. Here's a classic case why the video version was so integral. And they would see it, love it, and they would put in money. So I was able to accumulate a nice little nest egg right from the ground up, right from work, at my tables. Fundraising was successful. It wasn't that successful though, because we were only able to raise half the money. In an ideal world, when you go into production, when you start shooting your film, you have all of the money together, and then you start shooting. But Chris and I didn't have that advantage. We wanted to get the ball rolling and keep moving. So we went into production and started shooting the movie with half the money in place. It was a big risk. We thought it was either sink or swim. It could have easily proven to be the stupidest thing we'd ever do. But we went ahead and did it anyway. The shooting schedule for All Saints Day during production was 14 days straight. No days off, minimum of 16-hour days running across various Brooklyn neighborhoods. It was tough. What was scary, besides the time constraint, was that if we had one rain day, the film wouldn't be completed because there was no time or money to advance a rain emergency date in the future. There was none of that. We had to do it in 2 weeks or we were screwed. Chris and I had a game plan. Our 2 producers, my executive producer Robert Alfano and my associate producer Joe Muri, always spoke a pretty big game. They said, don't worry about money, you'll have the money, we'll get the money. But the day we started shooting, they didn't put in a dime. And we were gambling that while we were shooting this thing, somehow, some way, they would come in, they would see everything and be overwhelmed with the lights, with the crew. And for lack of anything better to say, I guess it worked because we were on our last day of the first week on day 7 and the money was gone. And my director of photography comes up to me and he's like, we need money to pay the crew. And Rob came in with a wad of cash and was able to bail out the production. And we were able to finish the second week. So I guess the gamble paid off. Although shooting the film was very stressful, as Chris can tell you himself, or anyone else on the set, it was also a riot. We had a great time.
Cool J! cool J!
I'm the king of the world!
Such a brute.
Should there be a space between the L and the W? It's like one word, ain't no world.
What are you doing? No, gentle. No, please don't. You bad boy. Ow! Bad.
The most memorable scene that I have when I think of All Saints Day is the water scene. The water was disgusting. I'd like to call it a giant cesspool that people call water.
I got some gasoline in my mouth.
I vomited in the water. James McArdle, Mickey Blatt, and Mark Love vomited when they got out. Another anecdote to that is, before we went down to shoot the water scenes, I got a phone call at home from a detective at some precinct telling me that a body got fished out there not but 6 hours earlier, and that my crew and my cast were suspect for murder because we were there the day before. And I thought it was one of my knucklehead friends playing a joke on me, and I was about to tell whoever it was on the phone to go piss up a rope, but turns out it was a real deal. Some guy got washed up there. By the time we came there to shoot, the Coast Guard fished the body out. But there was no way I could work around it. I had to shoot this scene. I had no other place to do it. I wouldn't tell my actors that a body floated up in the same exact spot where we were designated to film. I kept it from them, and we went in the water. I was the only one knowing that there was a cadaver, floating around there for a good 3 hours. It took 2 months to edit the film. Krista Schulten was our editor, and she did a wonderful job. But we're simultaneously looking for music for the soundtrack. And after being inundated with tons of material, we settled on a good handful of musicians. Starting with Underwhelmed, Life Machine, Regiment, Daphne, Orgonomics, Rob Santa. These musicians, these groups, they're also totally from Brooklyn as well. It just reminds me how much of a grassroots project this really was. The film festival circuit for All Saints Day was absolutely short and local. We did the Brooklyn Film Festival, we did the New York Film and Video Festival, we did the IFP Market at the Angelica, and we did the Long Island Film Festival, which we won Best Comedy. That was a lot of fun, that was cool. And it was somewhere in between the Brooklyn Film Festival and the IFP Market where Windstar approached Chris and I and asked us if we had our rights available. And we said, yeah, they're available, and they acquired us. When I think about all of the great independent films that are made every year that don't see the light of day, it makes me very thankful. I feel lucky. I'm very fortunate to be here speaking on a DVD. There were times I didn't think that anything would ever happen with All Saints Day. I didn't even know if I'd be able to finish it. It's definitely gratifying to be successful. I love filmmaking. It's a rush. It's the only thing I want to do with my life. I remember when I was in college, the film professors were telling me, take film, but always have a backup, like computer programming or business administration. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is it. If I can't do this, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'd make a pretty cool taxi driver, maybe. But this is it. This is definitely what I want to do for a long time.
You lack initiative and motivation. That's your problem.
All you ever do is sit around and do nothing.
Let me ask your girlfriend over here a simple question.
What's happening, Airspace, huh?
Suppose you had to go to my bathroom.
Ladies get in free, you get to pay double.
The powder your nose or whatnot.
I got $20 in my pocket, supposed to last me till next week.
And you saw what I described floating around there in the water.
You're still working for Red?
Would you come back to my fine establishment?
Last time you had a raise was when minimum wage went up.
No, you wouldn't, would you?
Red doesn't like to play favorites.
Now get in there and make your girlfriend real proud of you.
Had a bad day. You always have a bad day.
Social hour's over.
Fine, my place tonight, 8:30. My mother's got bingo. Bring your guy.
Please don't think I'm trying to push you to doing something you don't want to do.
No. I'd kick myself in the ass if I didn't do this. I need this.
Come on, Hardware. You know we can't do this without you.
Find somebody else, okay?
I don't know anybody else.
Introduce yourself to someone.
Peel me, squeeze me. Can't you see him in orange?
No way. What are you, out of your mind?
I want to go to Our Lady of Sorrow. Say a prayer for good luck.
Church? Well, I don't know what they taught you, altar boy, but I don't think God answered the prayers of potential felons.
I didn't realize you needed a degree in medicine to open this thing.
Car alarms. You told me you worked on home security systems.
When did I ever say I was the lock guy? I open safes.
You're telling me there's a rumor going around that
Red killed his own wife.
Where do you keep your gun, Red?
Do you think he might kill us for emptying out the safe?
Every time I talk to you, my IQ drops 100 points.
For Christ's sakes, you look like a dyslexic G.I. Joe. I told you to wear black. What do you want me to do? All my black clothes in the laundry.
You guys can swim, right?
I'm dying here. Help me!
I just captained my swim team.
Swim, Marco, you ready? Are you ready? Get in the car and relax.
I'll take care of that.
Eat these fish. I'm gonna ram them up your.
Get out and push.
And when I knock you down and I stick them up your. You sell fish here?
No, I sell down bikinis. Would you like one? I think you might look terrific in it.
They sell scallops.
11 crates of lobster.
Those soft-shell crabs, you know those?
She has the fish and we don't.
How about shrimp? Did you know me and shrimp? Dolphins. You saw dolphins? Those things, they swim around.
What is this, 20 questions?
If I can't trust two drug dealers I'm doing business with these days, who can I trust, guys?
It'll just be the four of us?
Yeah.
When?
Halloween night.
Nice.
How are things with you?
Me, things are good.
Yeah?
Never been better.